All right, what's up, guys? VV back with another video. And in today's video, guys, we're going to be checking out Blue Black Rebecca. That's right, Blue Black Rebecca. I've not messed with this leader exclusively for a while now. I did do a few games I think in like a week ago or so in a video. But yeah, today's entire video is dedicated to Blue Black Rebecca. We're going to talk a little bit about her. Just to give you guys a layout, a format for this video, we're going to be checking out a deck from over in the East in the OP07 format, which is really cool. Just a local tournament, nothing big, but like a nice little local 2-on-2 tournament with about 60 players in it, I believe, or 56. We can see in the background there. So we're going to check out a deck from the East, and then we're going to check out some games on the sim, and then we're going to check out the deck list and kind of, analyze it, break it down, and talk about it. And as usual, guys, y'all know how I am. Anyone who follows the channel by now, you know. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please leave them down in the comment section below. And I should have all this timestamp for you if you're trying to get to one specific part of the video and check that out first. Okay, so you know what you're getting into. Let's go ahead and dive straight into this. Blue Black Rebecca. In OP04, when this first got released, guys, this was my baby. I was so looking forward to playing this, and I never lost so bad with any leader I've ever played. Like, it just wasn't even close. Sorry, guys, it's the camera. There we go. But yeah, I went to, like, at my locals, good players and everything too, but it's like I was playing against nothing but blue and nothing but yellow. So every blue deck that I played against just bottom decked every single one of my Kairos or my Luffys or whatever. There was no Rebecca yet. Remember, that didn't come out till OP05. And it just felt horrible. And then the yellow is a tough matchup for Rebecca. I do think it's gotten a little bit better, not a lot, but a little bit better, because now we do have extra cards that help us get past certain stages of the game, like Gecko Moria, so we can transition into the late game in better shape and better condition than we were in previously. So Gecko Moria helps out the deck a lot. I think this Brook card is incredible. And then also, where was it? Rebecca. I think those three cards, now understand, Brook comes out in about a week at the time of me recording this video for us in the West. It's an EB01 card. But Brook plus Rebecca, very, very strong combo. Same idea with Gecko Moria, guys. Like these three cards are just so good. And one card that I wish I had played in the games that we're going to look at today that I played, I wish I had played this. Because this actually, understand, 6 is kind of a magic number, like for cost in this deck, because you're running Orlumbus. Orlumbus is going to let you pop one of your own characters, which you can typically cheat with cards like Sabo and with cards like Kairos, or just get rid of some of your lower cost guys you don't need anymore. Excuse me. So you can KO in that way to give -4 to a character. Well, that doesn't cost you any Dawn if your Orlumbus is already on the field. So for 7, in this situation, you'd be able to pop a 10 or less and then a 6 or less, right? And that's potentially very powerful. And then if you have other effects on the board like Brook, you could swing in so you could hit a 10 or less and a 7 or less. You guys get the idea, stuff like that. Very, very strong synergy there. One-legged toy soldier, that'll help you get up to a 9 or less. It just, this card I wish I had played, just giving you a heads up. I'm not playing it in today's games, but this is a card to include in the future if you're trying to play Rebecca. So real quick, I'm going to run through the list. This was a first place deck in a 2-on-2 tournament, a 56-player tournament. And there was one other list, I believe, by the same guy. See how the author is Roru, or however you say that? 62-player event down here that went 7-1, and 56-player event right here that went, well, it doesn't say what he went in this one. And they're very similar. We'll look over the first list, but I don't think it's as good as the second one. Because this one says Victoria Sindri. I don't understand. Like, this card is not playable in what's her name, in Rebecca. I mean, yes, you can play it on turn 1 as a 2K, or you can keep it in your hand as a 2K counter, but remember, you can't get this card back with cards like Monshuri or Rebecca. So any other 2K counter in the game would be better than this Sindri. So I'm thinking this was just some type of error or mistranslation, who knows. So because of that, everything else looks the exact same. Like notice the screen here, guys. Like, take a mental screenshot, and then when we go to this most current list, it is the exact same, but it's got Brook there instead of the Sindris. So it makes me wonder if that should have been Brook instead of Sindri. I have no idea, guys. No idea. But anyway, this is the deck we're going to look at. I'm going to run through the characters. We'll talk about the leader, and we'll move on from there. So 4 Orlumbus, 4 Gyats, 4 Kairos, 3 Sabo, 2 Suleiman. This is a card also that's popping up now that we have Rebecca. We'll talk about it in a second. 4 Bartolomeo, 4 of the 7 cost Luffy, back up to 4 of those. 4 Rebecca, the 1 cost. 4 one-legged toy soldier, 3 of the Moncherie, 4 of Rebecca, the 4 cost. 1 Gecko Moria in this list. That's interesting to me, I'm not going to lie. 2 Brook, 3 Corda Coliseum, and 4 Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. I just want to see something real quick to see if they only had 1 in the other one. Yeah, they only run 1 Gecko Moria, guys. Only 1 Gecko Moria. So if you accidentally go for Gecko Moria with your leader effect, like, I guess you're not going to see it for a while. I guess you could potentially see it again, but I think y'all know what I mean. Excuse me. So the leader, real quick, excuse me, guys. Activate main once per turn, pay 1, top 2 search, right? If you have 6 or less cards in your hand, look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, reveal it to 1 Dressrosa type card, and add it to your hand, then trash the rest. Or you could, and it's up to 1. So you could just trash them both if you need to fuel other effects and effects in the deck, like getting 7 cards in your trash so you can restand Luffy, things like that. But generally speaking, this list is identical to what they were running at the end of OP05, or excuse me, at the end of OP04, when this deck was doing pretty decent before Sakazuki came into the picture. Except now we have now they have access to Rebecca, and then in OP06. So let me say it like this: the deck has evolved in this way. In OP05, it got Rebecca. Okay, that's a really big deal, right? Same thing with Moncherie. This one's not as good, but it's still pretty good as well. But it got access to Rebecca. Then in OP06, it got Gecko Moria and Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. And this is probably what's going to take the deck to the next level. Another card I've seen, excuse me, people run just randomly on the sim is, what's it called? The 2 cost Pound Blaze, which I think is pretty decent. Because like I said, okay, with Orlumbus, you're hitting a 6 or less. With Suleiman, you're hitting a 4 or less. With one-legged toy soldier, hitting a 5 or less. Brook can help you get to a 3 or less. Like, there's a lot of options there. But I also understand this. I do get Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. It's like, hey, let's just 2 for 1 whatever they just played, right? Because, like, theoretically, if you play this on curve, and they just had their 6 Dawn turn, well, you're going to be able to wipe out 2 of their characters no matter what they are. And then you just say, all right, next, go ahead, your turn. You just pass back. Because what you're trying to do is just make it to the late game. Because on your 10 Dawn turns, notice the average cost of cards in this deck. There are no cards in this deck that cost more than 5 Dawn outside of the Luffy and Gecko Moria. That's it. So there are 5 cards altogether in the deck that cost 5 or more, other than the event that we were talking about, Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. So, but remember, this is just to help you to get to late game. So you play this out, on turn, what would that be, turn 4 or turn 5, whatever it is, or turn 3 or turn 4, I think, depending on if you went first or second. No. It would have to be turn 4. Like, pretty much no matter what, 7 Dawn is turn 4 if you went first or second, right? Unless you have some kind of Dawn ramp. So turn 4, you just wipe their board up with this, and now you have a 9 or 10 Dawn turn to work with, and you can play out multiple characters at a time that combo well with each other. People know what Rebecca does by now, right? If you don't, please pause this and take a look at it, because Rebecca is going to allow you to cheat out cards like Kairos, and now even cards like Brook. You can just take them straight from your trash and throw them into play. And with those effects, remember, they both hit a 1 or less. Brook is a little more, Brook has a little more utility in the sense that he can, first of all, he's a 1k counter, but he has an on-play and when attacking, -1 to the cost of a character for the turn, and then if they're a 0 after that, you can KO them. So he's kind of like a more useful version of Kairos, but Kairos is in the deck for a whole nother reason. He's just there for stability and as like just this constant attacker that your opponent has to try to deal with. Because remember, guys, for those who do not know, you can tap down your leader or your Coliseum, and you can save this character from being KO'd. So yeah, good stuff there. I could see this deck picking up some traction in OP07 because Sakazuki is gone. Now, there will be a new blue deck that can definitely compete against this, like with either Boa Hancock or Doflamingo, because those will have access to the blue bottom deck removal. Remember, guys, bottom deck gets around Kairos, it gets around Sabo, it kind of gets around all your grave, your trash shenanigans with cards like Gecko and with Rebecca and even Moncherie in this case, because it removes them from your trash. It just puts them on the bottom of your deck. Now you can't get them until later in the game. But with that in mind, these kind of decks, you know, Rebecca is the kind of deck that can go all the way through your deck. Sorry about the repetition there, but it can go all the way through. It can cycle all the way through your deck. So really cool stuff here. So that's the deck we're looking at. I use this as a little bit of inspiration. The deck that I'm using is a little bit different. We'll look at it at the end of the video. But let's go ahead and just hop over into the games now. Okay, so this is me, you know, this is me versus Black Yellow Luffy. Let me hit play. Make sure we're on 2x speed, and let me move my camera over. I always forget. Okay. Hang on one second. Where's my face cam at? There it is. Okay. Now we're set. Sorry about that, guys. So, first up here, we got Black Yellow Luffy. I do think this deck is decent against Black Yellow Luffy, especially if you include the Gravity Blade Raging Tigers, which I'm not running. Because that just allows you to, like, as soon as you see they've got, like, 2 Sabos or a Sabo and an Ace, bottom deck. That is one less answer, 2 less answers in that case. 2 less cards they have to deal with you later in the game. But remember, guys, when it comes to Rebecca, we don't really want to attack very often. Now, I got Kairos here. I'm just going to attack him. I like to put him at 2 life because that's like an uncomfortable spot. But Rebecca doesn't want to attack typically. They want to go late game with you and then start outvaluing you. Did that make sense? Sounds like a tongue twister. That way you can, you know, get your cards on the board that you need, set up a board state, and just win that way. So he swings 8 into Kairos here. I'm like, okay. I'll tap my leader to prevent that KO. Then he swings 8 more, and I go ahead and counter out of this because that was his whole turn. I'm still at 5 life. I need to go down in cards anyway so I can use my leader's effect because you have to have 6 or less cards in hand to use your leader's effect. So I start off with that. Go ahead and grab another Kairos. Now that I know he's kind of like not a big fan of how my Kairos is, it's like, okay, right here I'm trying to determine. I think I'm going to swing 8 into the Ace because let's just get a card off the board. It's always smart to not counter out of this in case I have a way to bottom deck it because then you won't see it again, right? Then I play out my my Kairos. I pop the Makino, and I'm just chilling, right? Like, I'm really not worried about attacking my opponent's life because, first of all, with Luffy, you don't want to attack their life. And second of all, I'm just trying to build up my board state here. So he swings 8 into face. I am going to have to take this when I don't have enough counter in hand. And you see what I'm saying? I'm already at 7 cards in hand. That's why it's kind of good to counter out early pretty aggressively so you can keep using your leader's effect and get more and more cards over the course of the game, fill up your trash. It does a lot of things. Okay, so right here, he's at 1 life, so I swing 5 at him one time there, and I'm like, you know what, he gave me a card for that, maybe I won't swing anymore, but there is, you know, there's also not a bad reason to swing here, especially with this card here, so swing 6 again. So sorry, I swung for 7, now I'm swinging for 6, let's see if he gives me the card. Uses Sabo and counters out. That was crazy to me, guys, I'm not going to lie, like that was, you know, a lot of people are learning the new leaders on the sim, and I respect that entirely. But at the same time, in my head, I'm thinking, don't you want to use your Sabo? Or, excuse me, don't you want to either take the life or lose the Sabo? Because that way you can get down to 1 life. Or get down to 0 life and then, you know, go about things that way. So right here, notice his board. He has a 5,000 power leader, and then he just gives up. I just blocked the 6K, and I was going to 2K counter out. But... Or excuse me, he was swinging in for 7K because he had 2 attached to his leader, so I was just going to block that and counter out with my Sabo. And now what's he supposed to do? He has 2 cards in hand, so 1,000 power and counter. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 potential attacks coming through. I only have to connect with 2 of them. And he doesn't know this, but I have a King Kong gun in hand. So, you know, he's done for. Now, I understand this was probably not the best Black Yellow Luffy player you'll ever see. And I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying, you know, he's probably trying to learn the deck. But at the same time, guys, like, I do think that Rebecca has a pretty decent matchup in a Black Yellow Luffy. I could be wrong. We'll have to see. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comment section below. Okay, so that was the first game. Next game, we got Green Uta here. Mono Green Uta. Let me get us up to 2x speed. Okay. This is a great start because I get to use my leader effect and I get to drop down Core to Coliseum. Right here, I get a little greedy. I probably should have gone for the 2K counter. But I grabbed the Kairos because that's like a constant threat that I can start poking with. If he puts any characters down, I can attack them, get cards out of the hand, you know, things like that. And he plays down a Nami. Now, unfortunately, I can't pop the Nami here. That does feel really bad. But I did get down to Orlumbus, and I'll be able to try it next turn. Okay, so he's going to swing 5 at me here, of course. So looking back, I think I counter out with the Rebecca here. Yeah, I do. I wish I had taken that one looking back, because then I could have used that Rebecca next turn to KO for the Kairos effect. So instead, I have to do things a little bit sloppy here. This is not ideal. This is not a great way to deal with it. You'll see. Okay, so I think what I have to do is one-legged toy soldier. I think I draw a card first to see what I get. I get a Leo, which is, you know, or excuse me, I get Leo and Gats. Leo would have been a decent call there just to KO, another KO effect, but I'd rather have the Gats here. Okay, so I swing in with Orlumbus. I want to get cards out of his hand. All right, then I'm going to play out the, what's his name? The one-legged toy soldier here, literally just to KO it. And that's where, like I said, I wish I had saved the one-cost Rebecca. It was just a play mistake. It happens. You know, it happens. I was really debating whether or not I should actually just KO the Usopp and swing more into the Nami there, but I wanted to go with the safe play. I wanted that card off the board because I can kind of, you know, I can actually outlast the Uta in the long term because I run removal. They're just trying to attack into my board and be efficient with characters and playing out characters like a lot at a time, like he just did, like Luffy and a Brook into Uta. I'm just trying to battle the board and draw a card every turn and just outvalue my opponent that way. Yes, Uta can draw a card every turn, but remember, I'm getting cards that have far more value over the long term of the game. Like Kairos is a card that they cannot really attack into. If they want to, it'll cost them minimum 2 attacks in an event or minimum 3 attacks, right? Because of my leader, you know, tapping my leader or my Coliseum. And there I have Luffy now. He's going to get to attack in every single time. So I swung into the 7. He counters out. I swing 7 more into him. And look, he has 3 cards in hand, right? The Uta has 3 cards in hand. I'm fine with him KOing my Luffy here if he wants to go for that, because I have ways to get it back later in the game with Rebecca and so on, and just, you know, just recycling through my deck. So he swings 5 there. I'm trying to actually not take too much damage early on, because for those who are not aware, okay, right there, that was a little bit of a blunder in my opinion, him swinging into the Luffy. I think he probably should have just gone face. And he plays out Eustace Kid, which is nice. But man, I just lost my train of thought. Whatever I was saying before, guys. I'm trying to keep my life up because Uta can double attack later in the game with an event called I'm Invincible, and I do not want to get in range of losing like that. That would not feel good. Okay, so I think I did a top 2 search with the leader effect. I have to pop my card there. I think it was Rebecca, or maybe I played out a Rebecca. I don't know, something like that. Play out Leo to pop one of his guys, and now I'm just going to have to. I popped the 3-cost blocker, so that way he has to invest something big here to try to get through my guy. So I swing 8 into his Eustace Kid. He lets it go, or excuse me, he lets the 7-cost Luffy go, an 8K attack. He could have 1K countered out, so now I know he doesn't really have any Dawn. But I do still play it safe here because I don't really have a follow-up play. So it's like, all right, I'll just swing 10 into it, and I'm going to swing 6 into your Brook. Let's see what he gives me. Doesn't have it, like we kind of already could have assumed that by the way he chose to block out of those. So I'm like, all right, here we go. So he swings 10 into my Luffy, and he doesn't get to draw a card because it was a Dracula Mihawk. It was not a film card on the top of his life. Feels bad to be him, but feels good for me in that situation. I play out a Gecko Moria. I grab back my 7-cost Luffy. I think I might have missed that. Play this out, play that out. You see what's going on. I'm doing my leader's effect, drawing cards. And now I've got 6 cards in hand, and they are 6 quality cards. They're not like, you know, leftover cards I couldn't play earlier because they were trash. No, like, these are all very high-value cards. And he's in trouble. So he swings 6 into my, or yeah, excuse me, he swings 6 into my 0-power 2-legged toy soldier. Or one-legged toy soldier. I'm like, okay, how's about I just swing 9 into your Luffy? And we're just going to, now I'm just going to clear your board every single turn. Now, I do need to start filling out my trash again. As you see, I'm running low on cards in my trash. No problem. My leader puts 1 in there. I've got other effects that I can do it. Like I've got an Orlumbus in my hand I can start cycling with as well soon. Cycling cards in my trash. And then they just give up. They gave up too fast right where I couldn't even, boom. They end up just giving up right here. It is over, like for all intents and purposes. Like I do have a King Kong gun in hand, so I just have to connect 1 more attack like I do here. Let me see. Boom. The 9K goes through. So now next turn, you know, it's just like 1 more 9K from him. I could do a 9K on Kairos, and then I could restand my Luffy and go, what was that, 3 plus 3+7 or 6+7 and go 13 at leader. That's that. Okay, and now for the final game. We just had 3 games lined up for today. Red Purple Law. This is probably the harder of all the matchups we saw today, believe it or not, even harder than Black Yellow Luffy in my personal opinion, because of how aggressive it is. I have to remember, when you're playing Blue Black Rebecca, you do have to stabilize, right? You have to hit a point where you've stabilized and you've made it into the late game with 1 or 2 life left at least, you know, where you can, you know, feel safe and start gobbling up the board every single turn. Okay, and notice I do run the hogbacks. I run the hogbacks because I can get those back with Rebecca, and then I can grab back my Gecko Morias, my 8-cost Gecko Morias with the hogback if I need to. I was also considering running Negative Hollow in the deck as a one-of, as just like a utility card. And speaking of that, I'll talk about it more when we get to the deck the deck tech part of the video, like where we analyze it. But I think like adding a one-of Pudding and a one-of like Negative Hollow to the deck would be really nice, because there'd be ways to get it back, like I was saying, with first of all, just by returning cards to the bottom of the deck with like Luffy's effect, but second of all, also with like the hogbacks I'm running in this list. Okay, so he plays out the 5-cost Eustace Kid. I need to start eating these cards up. He did this very passively, going to 5 Dawn and not using leader effect to remove my what's her name, my Rebecca. You know, hey, he has something in mind. I don't know what it is yet, but now I've got 2 cards on the board that cannot be KO'd. So he's going to have to start removing my guys, my Kairos cards, in one way or another. I'm aggressively countering out of everything I can, by the way. Notice I'm down to 3 cards in hand. That is so that I don't get too low early on in the game, and so I can keep my leader effect turned on. He swings 7 into my... He did that in the wrong order. He should have did 6 first and then 7, but I let it go anyway. Not a big deal. Okay, so I'm counting how many cards I have in trash, because for those who do not know, Truno Bastardo, the 4-cost event in my hand, if you have 15 or more cards in your trash... Or wait, yeah, is it 15 or more? I just had a lapse. It's either 10 or more or 15 or more. I'm sorry, guys, I can't remember off the top of my head. Cards in trash, you can KO with 6 or less. So that's actually massive, right? That can hit anything on the Law side of the board right now. In fact, it can hit anything that Law plays outside of the 7-cost ace. Okay, so he's going to swing 5 in the leader here. I'm like, oh gosh, I really don't want to give him the cards in my hand. I want that Rebecca. I want that 2K counter. He can have the Rebecca, the 1-cost Rebecca. He can have that all day. Swings in for 6. I 2K counter out. He plays another Eustace Kid. Now, every time he returns Dawn, he's going up 3 Dawn. He returns 3 tapped, rested Dawn, and then he's going to return 3 active Dawn. He is in a very good position. Now, yes, he could have gotten a much more aggressive pull, and he probably would have preferred that, to be honest. Nice. And then I get a Court of Coliseum. Absolutely massive here. Court of Coliseum is absolutely massive here, guys. Because that allows me to start eating the board up once I need to with Luffy. Okay, so right here I think I'm going to swing 9 in first with Gecko. Obviously, that's just common sense. Then I'm counting up my Dawn right here. I'm like, let me pop this guy. I'm trying to use my cards on the board first, get as much value as I can, because like I said, this game is going to go to the late, this is going to go to late game, so I have to be ahead of my opponent at that point. And I need to start eating up these cards on the board with my cards and keeping his life full, because he has 1 card in hand. If I don't give him any life cards, then he's not drawing cards. 7, he did have the 2K counter. That was unfortunate, but I'm still not too worried. Yeah, I was going to say he's probably going to go for my Gecko Moria. Hey, you can have it. He doesn't know. I've got Luffy coming in now. I'm going 8 into 6. He has only 1 card in hand, so he can't get out of that. And now I'm going to go 6 into 5. I don't restand my Luffy, because now that I see he is trying to battle for board, hey, you can have my Luffy to time warp. Absolutely, because I have another one in hand. I'm not going to show him that Luffy just yet, right? Okay, do a top search. Yep, grab the blocker here. That was perfect. That's a perfect little combo with Rebecca and Sabo, where it's like, okay, pay 1 to do a top 2 search, play out a Rebecca, play out a Sabo. That's a 10 Dawn turn where I get to refill my hand, resculpt it with the cycling, fill up my trash. It's absolutely perfect. Now I've got 2 solid blockers that cannot be KO'd. Now, as we know, Rebecca, or excuse me, not Rebecca, Law can still bottom deck these cards easily. Okay, plays out the 4-cost promo Law that can minus 2,000 for the turn, and swings in this way. I think right here I just give him the blocker. I don't know. Maybe I take it. I don't remember. Okay, or just 2K out. I agree with that. I like that play the best, to be honest, because I've got Luffy coming down this turn. Okay, so 7 into 4. He's going to give me that. I'm going to stand up 7 cards here. Or I'm going to return 7 cards to the bottom of my deck, restand Luffy, and then we're gonna keep eating this board. He's not going to get to play this game anymore, right? That's my logic. This game, like, you're not going to get to play this game anymore. I get a Suleiman. He can just he can literally just bottom deck any of the cards he wants with his leader's effect and a 1 cost. So I'm just trying to put as much pressure on him as possible, saying, hey, now you have to win the game this turn when I have 3 Dawn, or you have to clear my board. So what are you going to do? And okay, so he's swinging 7 into this. I do think it's a good idea to counter out of that. Like, I'm not going to lie. Countering out of that, I think, was the better call. But right here, I'm just like, okay, well, fine. If that's going to be your whole turn, then I'll do it like this. Now we're going to go 7 at life, and let me pause it. So it was going to be 7 into life, just to get 2 cards out of hand for sure, and then everything else into life. I could have just stacked everything on one guy. That would have worked too, but I don't know. Sometimes when you take a long time, when your opponent knows they're going to lose, they just leave anyway. So I did it 7, and then it was going to be the rest on my character. All right, good game. So those were good games. Those were fun ones there. Pretty decent pretty decent matchups too. Red, purple, Law, black, yellow, Luffy, and green Uta. Green Uta is still a good deck for those who have not tried it or played against it yet. So this is the list I was running. Like I said right away, I think these Destructive Sword of Thunder, I think it's really called True Bastardo. I think this becomes Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, just to be completely honest with y'all. Because that game that we just watched, the game that we just looked at, let me go back to like halfway through it, where he had all of those used his kids up, and I used the Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. Was it this next turn? Or I used the True Bastardo, like right here. Okay, so in this situation, the way that could have gone was, okay, I would obviously just, you know, swing. Okay, excuse me, I'd have to do it in a little bit different order. But if that True Bastardo in my hand was a Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, I just pop both. Yeah, actually, I could just pop both actives. I could just pop both actives and still have 3 Dawn left. 8 into this card, and then 8 into this kid, and 9 into this one with my 2 characters on the board. That's one option. Yeah, there's other things you could do as well. Like maybe one strategy is just to let him have one of the blockers, because he's probably not going to attack with it, right? That would be the logic there. But either way, you know, it's still, the True Bastardo sword is still strong, and it's searchable, and it costs 3 less to pop pretty much the same thing late in the game. It can pop a 6 or less, and Gravity Blade can bottom deck a 6 or less. But Gravity Blade, let me bring it up, it can always do a 6 or less, right? And it costs 7, and it gets 2 of them out of the way. So for 3 more Dawn, you're bottom decking as opposed to KOing, which it does have a lot of utility. It bottom decks instead of KOs, and it hits 2 at one time, which is just very, very powerful. Now let me look up this King Kong gun. Yeah, it's 15 or more cards in trash. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I could not remember if it was 10 or less or 15 or less. And I think what I'm thinking of is the new 1-cost card from... we got to bring it up now. Hang on. It's called... is it Tempest Kick? I think it's called Tempest Kick. Yeah, this new 1-cost card for CP9. This requires 10 cards in your trash. So that's where I was getting confused. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, let me get back to the Gravity Blade. This is the for sure card that I would work into the deck, and more than likely over the Destructive Sword of Thunder or True Bastardo. That's the first and foremost thing I would do to change the deck. But everything else that I have is almost identical to what the other player was running from the East. But he runs the Moncheries instead of the Leos. Excuse me. Yeah, he's running Moncherie instead of Leo, and we probably have our numbers a little bit different. Like, I run 4 Gecko and Moria, just because I think the card, it's kind of the top dog right now, right? Now, yes, in a deck like this, since I'm running the 2 Hogbacks, maybe only running 2 of these would clear up spots, right? Like, if I go down to 2 Gecko Morias, you know, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. And let me take out these Gravity Blades and go up 3 of these. Because if you think about it, and let me see one more thing before I go on. He's running 4. Yeah, so he's running 4 Gravity Blade Raging Tigers. So maybe I go to 4 Gravity Blade Raging Tigers, and then the Moncherie would be a good include. I mean, this is basically what he was running. And he was not running, I don't think he was running the, hang on, let me get a Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, and he was running Moncherie. Okay, there's 3 of those. He was running 4 Luffys. That's what it was. Okay, and he was running 4 Luffys. So I think this is pretty much identical to what his deck was. Some of the numbers might be a little different here and there, but this is pretty much what he was running. I was running something very, very similar. But the one big difference that he came across that I just was not paying enough attention to is that Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. That card, guys, that card is very, very strong. Because let me make sure, yeah, he's not running King Kong Gun. And honestly, I get that. Like, why would you run it? I mean, that's kind of my logic. Why would you run the King Kong Gun if you can just, number one, bottom deck whatever you need to, and just gobble up the board in the ways you normally would? And that was something we saw over in the East, right? All the way back in OP04. I saw every which kind of Rebecca deck doing very well at top tables because a lot of it comes down to pilot skill, guys. Yeah, I'm just saying, a lot of it does come down to pilot skill, which is a good thing, right? That'll make you better and better at the game by playing a deck like this and learning how all the combos work and learning what the absolute best combinations of cards are to deal with each situation. But I've seen lists that were running like a lower amount of Luffy's, a lower amount, like some were, excuse me, Luffy's they always had, but some were running no Quarter Coliseum, some were running no Monkey King, Gum King Kong Gun, right? So I saw all kinds of different stuff back then. I like the stage a lot because it combos perfectly with your Kairos. And like, notice I'm only running 3 Kairos, by the way. You can definitely go up to 4 of those. It would make sense. Because I think with my list, that's what it was. So I'm running the 2 Hogbacks to get back my Gecko Morias because later in the game, I just want to go Gecko Moria, just nonstop, right? Just back, left and right, just keep doing Gecko Morias. Because I feel like that in and of itself is a win condition. And then we also have this alternate win condition with Luffy. But the Gecko Moria can get back Luffy, right? Because you can go Gecko Moria into Rebecca, get back Luffy, and play out a 3 cost or less with Rebecca's effect from your hand, like, your 1 cost, or the Suleiman, or the Brook, wherever he is. Brook, Kairos, things like that. But yeah, again, this is just my version of the list. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it did very well for me. It was performing very well. Let me move Rebecca so we can get it all on one little strip here. But yeah, that's the deck list right there that I would recommend. I have, after making revisions and everything, that's kind of what I would recommend. Going to 4 Gravity Blade Raging Tigers. Sabo I like as a 3 of. Some people swear by this card that it's a 4 of. I understand. I respect it. But having 2 Sabos in hand is just a feels bad in my opinion. It's like a feels bad moment where you're probably just going to cycle it out. At least that's been my experience. But yeah, I think this list as is right here is pretty solid for what Blue Black Rebecca is doing. Now for a second, let's talk about Blue Black Rebecca in the future. I'm not running any OP07 cards in here, and there might not be any good OP07 cards for Rebecca. Let me see. I don't believe so. Yeah, this is OP06, OP06, EB01, yes, but I don't know if it gets any help in OP07. Y'all post something down in the comment section below if you think it does. But generally speaking, I think in OP07 this deck will be able to compete at some level, maybe like high B tier, low A tier, because Sakazuki is going to be gone. So this does become like the new hardcore blue-black control deck. I'm not saying it's as good as Sakazuki. Please do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying it's as good as Sakazuki, but I am saying that this deck is, it was always very solid. It's just that Sakazuki was so much better, right? Like Sakazuki was one of those decks that just, it was so good that Bandai determined we're going to have to just ban it, right? We're just going to have to ban the leader because when you have a blue-black color combination, you're comboing cost reduction with bottom decking as removal. Cost reduction with KO as removal is absolutely, already strong enough, but it's way more balanced. But bottom decking, maybe I'll talk about it again in the future, but bottom decking, I feel like, I just don't feel like it should be as prevalent. If there was like a single card that bottom decked in the game, like 9 cost Mihawk or something like that, right? Like, let me just bring up Mihawk so for those who don't know what I'm talking about. This guy right here. Like, if there was like 1 or 2 characters in the game, or 1 or 2 big events like Red Rock. Red Rock would be another good one. I think Red Rock's a great example of a card that, like, if this was the only, like, say there were 2 cards, if there was only Red Rock in the game that bottom decked, and only Mihawk as a character that bottom decks, then I would be more than happy. But every other card that is blue, in my opinion, like, of course blue needs removal, right? Well, here's how it should look in my personal opinion. It should look like this. Whoops. Like this guy right here, where it is a 10 cost 12k. That's a huge body, but it's not bottom decking. It's bouncing cards back to your hand. And for those who do not know the difference, there is a massive difference. Like, there is a massive difference between you bottom decking my Kairos and bouncing it back to my hand. Because if you bounce it back to my hand, okay, well now I get to use its on play effect again, right? And that's a good thing. Like, I feel like that's a balanced form of soft removal that blue has. Because blue already has access to a lot of other interesting things, you know, between 7 Warlords of the Sea, draw card effects, things like that. Excuse me. It has access to things in top of life searches, just like what the leader does. You know, the searchability and the card setting on top. But yeah. Another card to maybe consider in this list in the future maybe is the Ace. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry, never mind. Disregard. There's no reason to play Ace when we already have Sabo, because that's the same idea of like a 5-cost 6K with a 1K counter that draws 2 and trashes 2. Let me show you the card I'm talking about for those who do not know. Let me type in Portgoss because that finds it better. Is this guy. This is the card I was talking about, but again, this is just a lesser version of Sabo in the deck that we're running. Not to say this card's bad. This card has its own uses. But for what we're trying to run, this is just a worse version of Sabo. Because Sabo also gives us KO protection. So, yeah. Alright, well, that's about it, guys. Oh, and it also fills up our trash. Gives our board indestructible for a turn. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Well, that's about it, guys. Let me move my face over here. Sorry, guys. I always forget to move my face for this part of the video. Got to put up the patrons page now. Big shout out to the patrons. I really do appreciate you guys. Y'all are incredible. And to all the viewers, all the subs, everyone that likes, comments, shares, all that stuff. I really, really do appreciate you guys. Y'all are absolutely incredible. Got Dragon on the tier 2, that we added to the tier 2 now. Really appreciate it. Dragon's been one of the OG members of this channel for a long time, so big shout out to Dragon. And yeah, everything else is still the same on there. So, guys, please do not forget to like and subscribe if you have not already. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please do not hesitate to put them down in the comment section below. Because you guys know, I make these videos. Yes, I make them, you know, to check out for you guys to play test and stuff. But it also helps when I know, like, hey, come to find out, this card's better than this card in the deck from my experience. You know, and even if I don't agree, that's fine. I at least want to see what you guys are playing around with and what you guys are having, you know, luck or success with. You know, having good testing with. So, you know, please help us out so we can keep making the decks better and better and better. That's one of the main reasons of doing these kind of videos. Number one, I know a lot of people like this leader, but number two, and I like the leader, by the way, but number two, it's like, okay, let's bounce ideas back and forth. Let's see how we can take this deck to the next level, especially in OP07 when Sakazuki's gone. Right. I'm done rambling, guys. Again, big shout out to the patrons. You know, Asian Baka, Michael, Tropical Bobcat, Van Buren, Patrick DG, Dragon JT, and Optimistic Prime Brian. You guys are great. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for all the viewers, likes, subscribes, and all the shares, all that good stuff. And yeah, until next time, guys. Peace.